There's a moment in All-American Season 8, Episode 7 that perfectly explains why Coupe has never been an easy character to define. She's grown. She's become a lawyer. She's built a future far beyond Crenshaw. But the second Amina and Preach are in danger, all of that disappears. Because underneath the professional clothes, the courtroom confidence, and the new version of Coupe we've been watching develop for 8 seasons, there is still that girl from Crenshaw who refuses to abandon her people. And honestly, somehow some way, may have finally delivered the character-focused story we were promised. So stay with me till the end, because Coupe's choice in this episode could completely change her future, her relationship with Breonna, and possibly the entire fight to save Preach and Amina. From the beginning, Coupe's biggest problem has never been that she doesn't care. It's that she cares too much. That passion has gotten her into trouble countless times, but it's also the reason people love her. And this episode put that contradiction front and center. When Coupe realized she had missed Amina's calls and messages, she completely fell apart. She wasn't thinking about her career anymore. She wasn't thinking about her job. She wasn't even thinking about herself. She was thinking about Amina. And Coupe immediately blamed herself. In her mind, she should have been there. She should have answered. She should have known something was wrong. Everyone around her tried to reassure her, but there was only one person who really knew how to reach her, Layla. And that made sense because Layla understands the complicated history behind Coupe's guilt. But there was another relationship quietly developing underneath all of this. Coupe and Breonna were beginning to crack. Breonna approached the situation like a lawyer. She was professional, informed, and focused on the case. But Coupe wasn't seeing a case. She was seeing her family. To Coupe, Preach wasn't simply another person caught up in a legal mess. Amina wasn't simply another young person who needed representation. These were her people. And that difference between Coupe and Breonna became incredibly important. Because Coupe has spent years trying to become the kind of lawyer who changes lives. But now she was discovering exactly what kind of lawyer she really wanted to be. And I have to admit, I loved seeing Coupe go into full investigation mode. The crime board. The suspects. The connecting pieces. Apparently, Coupe is an Olivia Benson fan, and honestly, I'm here for it. But the situation was far too serious for it to feel like a fun detective story. People were trapped in a nightmare, and Coupe knew she had to do something. Then came one of the biggest surprises of the episode. Patience. At first, I assumed Layla had reached out to her. That seemed obvious. Layla knows Coupe extremely well, and she could tell that Coupe was emotionally spiraling. But it wasn't Layla. It was Breonna. And that small decision told us a lot about Breonna. She knew Coupe needed something she couldn't personally provide. She knew Coupe needed someone who had been there before. Patience had known Coupe through some of the hardest moments of her life. She had seen Coupe deal with grief, guilt, loss, and the complicated responsibility she felt toward the people she loved. So when Patience showed up emotionally for Coupe, it wasn't just fan service. It reminded us that Coupe has a history. Those flashbacks were especially important because they showed just how much she has changed. 8 seasons ago, Coupe was reckless, impulsive, and constantly trying to prove herself. Now she is a lawyer with a future. But the emotional core hasn't disappeared. And maybe that's the point. Growth doesn't mean becoming someone completely different. Sometimes it means learning how to use the same passion in a better way. That brings us to Cassius. Because while Coupe was fighting to save Amina and Preach, another decision could have created an even bigger problem. Cassius working with Cliff Mosley was already risky. Then a reporter started following Cassius, Jordan, and KJ around, looking for something he could turn into a story. And the timing couldn't have been worse. People were trying to rescue their friends, yet this reporter seemed more interested in family drama and controversy. KJ even tried to redirect the conversation toward the bravery of the Crenshaw students. That was important. Because KJ wasn't thinking about publicity. He was thinking about his friends. But now there's a bigger question. Did Cassius accidentally make the situation worse? The flash forward showing everyone together at the showcase makes things even more interesting. Whatever happened here clearly isn't going to disappear quietly. And that brings us back to Coupe's biggest decision. She used Breonna's connection to a judge to help get Amina out of the detention center. And when Coupe spoke to that judge, she didn't just make a legal argument. She made a personal one. She reminded the judge that she had once been young. She had made mistakes. And someone had given her another chance. That moment perfectly captured who Coupe has become. She isn't fighting just because she's angry. She's fighting because she believes people deserve another chance. That's the lawyer she always wanted to become. And apparently, even her new boss has noticed the difference. When Coupe is defending tenants' rights, she's capable. But when Amina's freedom is on the line, that's when she comes alive. Laura Baker understood that about Coupe years ago. Now Coupe is finally in a position where she can actually act on it. But there's a cost. Because Breonna may have fallen in love with the new, more mature version of Coupe. The responsible lawyer. The woman building a career. The person who finally seemed ready to move forward. But what happens when that person chooses Crenshaw again? What happens when Coupe realizes that her old neighborhood isn't something she needs to escape from? Maybe it's the place she's supposed to fight for. And I really hope the show doesn't turn this into another love triangle. Because the emotional center of this story should be Amina. When Miranda complained that Khalil only cared about finding Amina, it felt frustrating. Yes, Khalil was also trapped in that classroom. Yes, he had every reason to be angry and afraid. But Amina is his childhood friend. Of course he's worried about her. And Amina desperately needs someone like him right now. Because the emotional toll is becoming unbearable. One of the hardest moments of the episode was seeing Amina unable to even take a shower. She was overwhelmed. She couldn't process what was happening to Preach. She didn't have answers. And eventually, she just collapsed. That's when KJ stepped in. And that moment mattered. Because KJ didn't need a big speech. He simply stayed with her. Sometimes that's what people need most when everything around them is falling apart. And that's why I don't think this storyline is anywhere close to finished. Preach is still trapped. Amina is still traumatized. Coupe has officially thrown herself into the fight. And now the entire group has another reason to come together. The question is whether they can actually rescue Preach without destroying everything else around them. Because Coupe has made her choice. She chose Amina. She chose Preach. She chose her family. And maybe, without realizing it, she also chose the version of herself that she was always meant to become. So now I want to hear from you. Did Coupe make the right decision by putting Amina and Preach ahead of her career, and do you think Breonna will ultimately support her choice? Let me know in the comments, because this could completely reshape Coupe's future. And with Olivia returning next week, we may finally get another piece of the puzzle. For now, one thing is clear, Coupe may have grown up, but she hasn't forgotten where she came from. And sometimes, the people we leave behind are exactly the people we're meant to come back for. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next All-American update. Until next time, All-American fanatics.